Have you ever asked yourself of whether we have young people in the research industry or not? The answer is we have young people in the research industry. But there is something that I want you to know, that research industry is not an area that everyone would love to be part of. And that is because research is something a bit hard. It involves you in some of data collection and also doing analysis, of which not everyone would like to talk about it. Today, as we have come to the 5th episode of the Youthful Youth, and in the 2nd season themed I Choose to Develop South Sudan, we are here today to talk about young researchers as key actors in development. And before we delve into this conversation and talk about young people who are in the research, I would love to give you an assignment as part of our program today. So now there is a learning resource called Common Sense Education. It says that there are 4 C's. These 4 C's are essential for the success of every organization. These 4 C's are communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. As a young person who is working in an organization or in a government entity or in every sector where you work now, how do you apply these 4 C's in your work environment? Let me give you an example of myself, Tim Daniel. Me, I value more collaboration. And the reason I value collaboration is because it gives you an opportunity to interact with people who are with you in the same industry, and it also gives you an opportunity to look at the perspective of people from different aspects of life. So now the assignment is, if an organization will succeed depending in these 4 C's: communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. For me, what stood out significant to me is collaboration. I like to collaborate. I like to reach out to people, share with them ideas, share with them knowledge, and also tapping into the knowledge that they have. And for those who have just joined us, this is the Youthful Youth coming to you live from the SSBC, and we are in the 2nd season of the program, and this is the topic we are discussing today: young researchers as key actors for development. Let's go for a short break to see what the control room has for us, and then after we come from the break, we will introduce our guests to you. Stay tuned. A very good morning to all viewers of SSBC. Welcome to the Youthful Youth, and in particular, welcome to the 2nd season of the Youthful Youth program, themed I Choose to Develop South Sudan. In this season, we focus on hosting young people who are contributing into development in various capacities, whether they are contributing in the sector of economic, politics, health, education, and all different important sectors. We are here today live from the studio talking about young researchers as key stakeholders in development. And before we went into the break, we have asked you to do an assignment, since we are talking about research. And I told you that for you to succeed in your own organization, there are 4 C's: communication, creativity, collaboration, and critical thinking. For me as a team, I value collaboration within my work environment, because collaboration gives me a chance to interact with people and also tap into their ideas and into their knowledge. Wherever you are joining us from, we would love to bring to your attention that this program is broadcast live at our social media outlets. On Facebook, we are available on SSBC TV, also on YouTube, SSBC TV. If you are watching us, share with us your comment as far as this topic of today is concerned. And I'm delighted to have with me in the studio today a young researcher by name Catherine Charles. Catherine, thank you for honoring our invitation and welcome to SSBC.
Thank you so much, Ajahn, for having me today.
well.
This morning, yeah.
Exactly. So research is something that not everyone would like to be part of. In my introduction, I've mentioned that people tend to avoid research simply because people don't like to go and search for data, collect data. So it has turned to be an industry that people always leave it for those who are called genius. And some of the challenges that I have come across when I interact with young people, especially in the universities, they will tell you that it is very difficult for us to get information. For example, when a lecturer gives them an assignment, the first thing that comes to their mind, where will I get? And they end up having people who write research on behalf of them. Their role is just to go to the lecturer and do the presentation. So these are some of the challenges that researchers face. As a researcher, as an expert in that researcher, what are your thoughts on the challenges?
Thank you so much, Atem, for having me this morning. And I think the 4 C that you have mentioned, and I was just doing my assignment, I think I will pick the last C, which is the critical thinking, and I will link it with our conversation this morning and regards also connecting it to the challenges, which is another C. I think we need to look at the research industry is tedious, but if we look at the historical background about research and production of knowledge, globally in the colonization era, you can see clearly looking at Africa as a continent. When it comes to knowledge production, when it comes to innovation, whether you are looking at the social science industry, whether you are looking at the medical industry, most often is very Western-centric. It's coming, all this knowledge that is produced, all these things that we are using is mostly coming from the global north. And most often, Africans are just recipients of the knowledge. Whether we're looking at it in education sector, you can see our education. It's most of it, we don't feel like we are part of the process. It's just that we are part of the product. Reason being is because we don't have so many researchers. We don't have so many, people that produce knowledge. It's not that they are not there, but it's actually the system is made in such a way that people from the global north come to take raw data and then produce knowledge and then give it to us. It's the same way when we look in every product. So even with the knowledge production in Africa, generally, that's the case. But after the independence of African state, you look at it from 1950s, and they call for African agency. Africa has to take, Africa solution to Africa problem. So, and it's not just about, it's also about knowledge production. And there's a lot of experts, there's a lot of, researchers, there's a lot of professors that are, coming into education industry, science industry, art, culture, arts, name it. So just scaling it to South Sudan, so I'm just looking at it from the global level, but also now zeroing it to the continental level, which is Africa, but then looking at it now in the South Sudan context, we are not also, we are the same, so because we are an African country. So for us, and I even me personally, when I start my, my studies, I'm a lawyer by training, and then eventually when I moved to social sciences, and one of the key things one of the key challenges that I face is it's very difficult when you research, especially when it comes to the academic sector, you always get Charles A.B. or, most of English names speaking to African issue or South Sudan issue. It's like, why am I not seeing, a time when I see KG, when am I, that sort of like thing, where are Africans or where are the South Sudanese that write, that produce knowledge so that at least our sisters, our brothers in high institute will use that. So it's very difficult. So for me, that's like the first challenge. It started from a way historical context. It's like the system made it in such a way that knowledge production is Western-centric, but it's not global South sort of like centric. But looking at it at the second phase of it, the question of mentorship and research institute. Yes. So it becomes so difficult here to get an institute that will mentor you into the research pathway or career, because like you have mentioned, it's not easy. You have to do a lot of reading, you have to do a lot of qualitative, quantitative data, do a lot of analysis. So it's an area that is not very well exploited, like in a South Sudan, context. We only have few national research institutions, like the Sud Institute, which I'm a research associate there, Ebony Center, which they're doing also amazing work, but also there's a research center in University of Juba, but it's not enough. You see, youth are 72 or 73%, of the
population.
Yeah, but at the same time, and there's a lot of empirical data that we need to collect. So it's just that if you look at the researchers, it's just maybe 2 or 3% because of the challenges of accessibility to this institution, the accessibility of, research is a multidisciplinary, field. So it can be quantitative, qualitative, ethnographic, so many things, but we don't have enough space for us to, to mentor us, to sort of like pick that career pathway, but then at the same time, in terms of resources, it's not there. But also, the work of researchers are undervalued in South Sudan. Most of the time, people think that, you do a paper, maybe it's a policy brief, 2-3 pager, and most of the time, the value of that professional time sometimes very little, and then like, okay, why will I put so much of my effort, and then at the same time, this effort and time is not well compensated. But also at the same time, and especially linking it to a student from University of Juba, is that your research has to have like credibility. And there's so many young people, I see they write in newspaper and all this commentary papers and all this kind of a thing. But the research industry, you need to have an institution that is very recognized to publish your work. So when your work is published, you sort of get this sort of like, what do you call, accreditation, so that people will say like, okay, I can come to ATEM because ATEM is legit, those all sort of things. So we need also institution that publish our work, so that at least we get to be accredited, we get to be expert in the field, rather than just, getting an expert from somewhere and then we get attached to them. At the end of the day, you do 70–80% of the work, but the accreditation is not given to you because you're just, catering a South Sudanese or a local. So it's very important that there is this, the professionalism, the time, and also the institution that value the work.
Exactly. Also, there is something that we need to highlight it as far as the challenges is concerned. When you look at the digital era, we have the artificial intelligence. So you go to ChatGPT, you write to him, write for me a research about this particular topic, and then he writes for you. You take what the ChatGPT gave to you and you go rush to the school, do the presentation. Now when it comes to legitimacy and the authenticity of research, it's a challenge. How do you navigate your way through? For example, if you are to correct some of these behaviors, let's say in learning institutions, in universities, how can we correct those challenges? The artificial intelligence when it comes in. So because at South Sudan context now, we don't have the technical capacity to come and do analysis whether the person has wrote his research through the AI or it is a knowledge coming from his or her mind.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. And then with the AI coming in, and it's not just a South Sudan problem, it's a global challenge. And there's a lot of apps that counter, to do, they call it fact check, it's called checker. So other universities usually run to your paper, and then they will see the level of plagiarism, and then they will see whether it's at what percent, if it's 50% or 8%, because usually in the research industry is that you have to have reference, because it's not that you're producing a new knowledge. There's this assumption that the knowledge is already exists. It's either you are adding into the knowledge, or it's either you are exploring it until there's a lot of due diligence, there's a lot of, and the credibility, the question that I was saying, that usually sometimes that you find so many people right, but you have to be in a credible institution for you to be verified that, yes, the knowledge that you are producing, you are not doing plagiarism and all this kind of a thing. But for me also, I look at it at a personal level, because at the end of the day, it's your credibility, the professional ethic, what kind of researcher you want to be in whatever field that you choose. Because if you rely so much on AI, of course AI will produce to you, but then the question, like, you have to explain yourself.
Exactly.
How have you, just as simple that in your methodology, like, you know, you have to explain how do you get into that and all this kind of a thing. So sometimes more often it's just like the CV that people find, that sometimes you get someone have a very well-written CV, but then in practicality of it, they will fail to deliver. So for me, it's a two-way thing. Institution, or whether it's academic institution, whether it's, you know, professional institution, have the duty to do verification, but then also at the personal level, you have the duty to, you know, to uphold, you know, to be credible, at least for your own career sake. And I will literally say that to the young people, that, you know, if you're starting your career, at least you start from a credible, you know, point. And the question of another thing is, AI is there to help.
Exactly.
Not necessarily, yes, use AI, but use AI to help, not necessarily to give you all the outline without any verification. And AI do also do mistakes. You know, even ChatGPT cannot do referencing.
Exactly.
Yes.
So as we wrap up this challenges segment part of the program, let me share a challenge that I have encountered when I was doing my research during my undergraduate studies. So I came to the doctor. I did a bachelor degree in economic and financial sciences. So the doctor asked me that, what is the topic of your research? And I told him the impact of inflation on Sudan economy. And then he asked me, what are you going to focus on? I told him, I just want to talk about inflation. And then he's like, this is a very wide topic. You need to narrow it down to a specific. In that inflation in the economy of South Sudan, what would you like to cover? So he helped me to rephrase the topic. So I divided it into two parts. So the first part is I talked about the causes of inflation. Number two, I talked about the effect of that inflation in the economy. And the last part is mechanism to mitigate this inflation and how to address it in the economy of South Sudan. So I asked myself, if I did not meet the doctor, this research would have been not authentic. And it comes to the issue of, do we have mentors in the research industry or not? And if we don't have, what can we do to have mentors?
Yeah, I think and I mentioned it earlier as one of the challenges, the mentorship. And mentorship happens in so many ways. There's mentorship that is one-on-one. There's mentorship that you cannot necessarily meet your mentor, but you can just follow their footsteps. I know I have mentors that on one-on-one basis is because I'm a research fellow with Africa Leadership Center, and they are very deliberately about knowledge production from African perspective.
Yes.
So that's where I was fortunate enough to be in this community of researchers, and I was able to tap into the various wealth of experience. But another thing that when it comes to like South Sudan, I have mentors like Dr. Luca Bion, who writes amazingly, especially when you are on social sciences. But I don't know him, but I know his writing because I'm a reader, a researcher, you do read. So I do read his publication. I follow like how he argues and, you know, his perspective, his ideology. So mentorship, not necessarily that at times you have to mentor me, but also it can be mentorship from a distance whereby you follow a person, particular work, or maybe an institution that, you know, they produce good research and they're like, okay, let me just follow their papers, their next publication and all this kind of a thing. So there's two ways on that. But the other thing that do we have enough mentors? It goes back again to the challenge that as South Sudanese, we have to be very honest. The culture of data, we don't, even let's just be sincere, we don't put our policy based on scientific data.
Yes.
It's very difficult, even if we go to institutions as researchers, that let's say, for example, I want to do a survey or something. It's very difficult even sometimes to get credible, not credible, just to get data from different institutions, even just school. You go and they're like, no, you know, our data system, the last time we put it here, we don't really value the importance of documentation, of putting our, you know, books in order, making sure that, you know, at least we have a whole department for data. So if we are going to do any, or if we're going to make any policy, it has to be based on data so that we know, we do sort of like projection, like we have amazing, like for example, you produce a very amazing, you know, thesis. So what is it that we're doing with this thesis in University of Juba or Upper Nile University, name it, this public university? Because if 100 or 10,000 students are graduating, they are producing knowledge. Their research is a knowledge. So what is it that the university are doing with it? Is it that you submit your paper, the next thing is in a cupboard 2-3 days? It's like, no, we need this space, let it all go out. So it's very important that we need also to think as a country, we need also to think, how do we preserve our data so that it can help us in our policy analysis, in our policy development, so that when we put a policy out there, we know for sure that it's coming from a data. It has to be a data-driven. It has to be scientific policy that it can easily make an impact quickly. We'll be able to trace, because the beauty with data, at least the probability of it, you know, having impact is 70 or 80%.
Exactly. Thank you so much for that information. And to all viewers of SSBC, the conversation is getting interested. And this is the second season of the Youthful Youth themed I Choose to Develop South Sudan. And in today's episode, we are talking about young researchers as key actors in fostering development in the country. We have talked on the challenges of data collection. We would love to go for a short break as we continue in this program. Let's go for a short break and stay tuned in this program. Welcome from the short break, viewers of SSBC. We would love to bring to your attention that this is the Youthful Youth program coming to you live from SSBC, and we are in the second season of the program focusing on young people as essential partners to development. We are delighted to have with us in the studio today young researcher by name Catherine Charles, and we are talking on the role of young researchers in fostering development. Follow us on Facebook on SSBC TV, as well on YouTube, SSBC Official. And if you have comment as far as this topic is concerned, you can share with us in this social media outlet. Catherine, welcome again from the short break to SSBC. And before we went to the break, we talked about the challenges. Now, the research industry comes with a lot of opportunities. And many young people are following us. Some of them are hesitated. They want to join the research industry, but they tend to lag behind because of the challenges. Now we have highlighted on the challenges. When it comes to the opportunities that are available to young people in the research industry, you've talked about the existing of some of limited institutions in South Sudan, like the Sud Institute. What are some of these opportunities that young people can tap to the research?
Yeah, I think one of the things is, number one, as young people, I'll just speak from my own experience. So you have to start from being the question of mentorship.
Yes.
So it's not that you just wake up one day and then you become a researcher. I was fortunate enough to be able to be a research assistant. Even up to now, I do a lot of, being just a research assistant. So
That's very interesting.
Yeah, so it's like, let me speak of my experience with Sud Institute, for example. So Sud Institute is one of like the leading research think tank in South Sudan, and they do produce a lot of amazing policy paper, weekly, commentary, and they speak to imperial data. And I think that's one thing that is very catchy, because as young people, especially as the millennium and Gen Z, we want to influence things. We want to make change as soon as possible. So looking at Seed Institute, my engagement with them, I started as an enumerator. It was in 2022 or 2013.
Yes.
And it was as simple, the application process is as simple that we're just looking for enumerators to collect data from 10 states of South Sudan. The only qualification that you need is, what do you call it, is secondary school certificate or degree or higher. So it exposed me not only just to be collecting data, but understanding the diversity of South Sudan. So it's one where I was able to know that, okay, we have enumerators that are going to, Bargazal, that are going to Upper Nile, Eastern Equatoria, and all this kind of a thing. And then the beauty of it, almost 90% of the research associates there are women. So it was one of the beautiful things, and we're doing also research. The research was on, it was on, I think GVV, something to do with GVV. There, and then from that time we sort of like build a network, like, okay, how about we don't have to go through the process of application again. We started the work, let's build continuity, like what you have mentioned, that collaboration, one of the C's. So we'll go back to the C's that you mentioned.
Exactly.
So from that time, it was a network. So the thing about researchers, it's not something that you do every day. So it's something that, you can be engaged on part-time basis. I have like my 8 to 5 job, and then by that time also I was studying, I was doing my master's. So at least they keep me on the loop to know, like, okay, we are going to do this study and all this kind of a thing. So that's the importance of having a community of researchers, because you cannot work in an island. And that's where maybe that's where also you get mentors, you get a particular, if someone is a lead investigator for a research, they're like, okay, we like to have a research assistant. Are you available? So you get the opportunity to learn, but also at the same time building your skills. So I think that's one of the opportunities. And looking at the Africa Leadership Center, because I'm a research fellow with Africa Leadership Center, it not only exposed me to the South Sudan context, but also exposed me to the continental, context, looking at, and I was fortunate enough to go to southern part of Africa, and also to study, to understand the context of Southern Africa, because I'm from East Africa, and they are very deliberate that, no, we have to switch it. If you're coming from East Africa region, you either have to go to West Africa, North Africa, or Southern Africa. So I picked Southern Africa because of the similarities. So that's also another opportunity. And another thing that is CLAP, like, essentially looking at the secondary school level. So often we talk about young people, but we are not necessarily focusing on young people at the secondary school level, because we do have youth at the secondary school level.
That's true.
So there's a lot of CLAP. If you go to the secondary school, I think amazing, that's how you start to mentor, because even us, as young researchers, we have also the obligation to mentor. So mentorship is not necessarily that you have to be senior. We have to do also peer-to-peer mentorship. So it's very important that this was another opportunity. That don't look at it that I need Dr. So-and-so, I need Catherine, I need what. There's also peer-to-peer mentorship. I know of my peers that I do mentor, and also at the same time it's vice versa. So sometimes after a long time, after 4 or 5 years or so, you actually start to mentor your mentor.
Exactly.
So because there will be exchange of of knowledge, and then at one point the mentee become the mentor. Exactly. So it's very important that we look at it. That's also another opportunity. But looking at the universities, I think the high learning institutions have the greater role to play in inculcating the spirit or the culture of doing research, and making it more palatable for young people to join. Make the application process very easy. Don't necessarily complicate things. We know that we have difficulties in internet. Give more options, Make it as simple as that. Put your name, we'll reach out to you. So it's very sort of like we have a lot of duty to play, and there's so much opportunity, but we need to tap into it. But that's why we have that sort of conversation for us to talk on it. Yeah.
So now, if we are to ask you a very interesting question, as our followers are following, what is that policy paper or a research that you are very proud of? What was the topic of that research, and if you are given a platform and you are ready to talk about it?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm very proud of is a commentary paper that I wrote recently. No, I think it's last year. That's like the last thing with a court, and it's on the postponement of the election, and I was just able to air my view and my perspective of what is it that we need to do differently for us to transition. So my research interest is on governance, and sometimes it's very difficult that as a young woman, the first thing that someone will look at me is like, oh, maybe your research is on gender, but I'm more interested in governance in relation to peace, development, and security.
Yes.
So that's one of the things. One of the paper that I'm so, it's very clear in my mind, and because it has sort of like an impact, and I was seeing this, there's a lot of people that are quoting it when they're speaking in a big regional or international outlet, saying that the voices is coming this, it's sort of like, affect like a policy trajectory. So for me, that is one of the recent work. It's not a big piece, it's just a commentary.
Yes.
But also another thing is on constitution. So my thesis for my master's on global leadership and peace building, it was on the relationship of state and the citizen and looking at the constitution making process in South Sudan. So I think that one is, I put so much work into it. And I'm looking forward to polish it and take it like more forward. And the thing with research, you can work on a paper for 2, 3, 4, even 5 years. So it's a craft. You have to take your time. You have to, So yeah, I think that's the two things that is off it that I can say.
Very interesting. If research can give Catherine an exposure to regional and international platform, you might be watching us and you would love to join this research industry. That's why we brought this program to give you information on how you can tap into the area of your specialization or the area of your interest. So we will go for a short break as we continue talking on the role of young researchers in fostering development. Stay tuned as we go for a break. Viewers of SSBC, welcome to the Youthful Youth program. Again, we remind you this is the second season of the program, and we are focusing on the role of young people in development. Do you choose to develop South Sudan? If yes, how are you developing South Sudan? Do you have an initiative? Are you contributing to development in a way or in another? The objective of this program is to look into the role of young people in fostering development in different sectors. And in this fifth episode, we are delighted to have with us Catherine Charles, and we are talking on the role of young researchers in fostering development. We've talked about the challenges, we've talked about the opportunities that are available for young people who would love to be part of the research industry, and now we want to talk about the importance of research itself. Catherine, before we went into the break, we have talked about the opportunities, and then you gave an example of some of the leadership institute that you are currently sharing with them your research papers. Now coming to the research industry itself, its importance, because some people will look at it, and this is stereotypes that many people have in their mind, that it is for genius people. If you go to university now and ask a student, they will always tend to shy. They just want to do the assignment, and that's it. No one wants to specialize in the research industry. Now we want you to share with our viewers the importance of this research institution.
Yeah, I think I would like to say that it's a personal conviction.
Yes.
And like as I mentioned earlier, I'm a lawyer by training, and the reason why I choose this pathway, and you mentioned about development, you mentioned about contribution to our country, And for me, I ask myself that this is a gap. We are facing that we don't have so many people that are producing knowledge.
Exactly.
And most of the time that we always get researchers from outside country. They take the raw data and then they give us the paper. And I love to read. I'm a reader. I usually, for most time, I usually say that I'm a reader. And I know you host
Read initiative.
less read initiative. And with reading, you process a lot of knowledge. But then the question of now articulating this, this knowledge, because when you read, you find gaps, and you question yourself that, okay, what is it that I can add? And that's where the element of writing that comes into it. So reading and writing goes hand in hand, and then the question of articulating the thoughts. And it's just that it's very unfortunate, and I mentioned that we don't inculcate this culture. Even not, it's just not a South Sudan thing, but at the African, as a continent. So for me, is that the importance of it, you produce knowledge, you have a say in how you want to live, or at the same time on how you want the country. Like it's a whole different, research can be in different field, and I'm specifically focusing on my own field, which is social sciences, and looking at governance as my research interest. And the importance of it is just that the fact that you have a voice by writing, by putting your thought out there, and it's going to impact change. You are producing a knowledge that not necessarily, you don't have to wait for a person to come all the way from US, or a person to come all the way from any part of Europe, or coming from any part of Africa to write on the social issue or economic issue of South Sudan, so that at least we have a policy that will solve the problem. So it's very important that you are here with the data. Why not study it and write it? And I think, again, I will put it back to a higher learning institution, the question of the methodology. Because the reason why, and I know for sure that young researchers, or maybe there's a lot of people, and I'm sure there's a lot of students in Jabal Juba will love to be part of, part of the research, but then the methodology is very tedious. And I know if you are in second, third year, there's a unit called research method, and it's not very catchy, because the research methodology that is taught at the university level it's very far from the reality. So how can we make now research to be more excited for people to join it, not making it? And one of the challenges that I face, for example, that when I write, people will tell me that you need to cite, and I was like, but this is my own experience. How do I cite myself? So the question of positionality. If you are producing the knowledge, how do we now, cite yourself so that it can be authentic? Because that will be a South Sudanese experience, but it's very difficult. You'll be cornered that you need to look for any philosophy somewhere to back it up. So it becomes so, so it's very important that we need to package ourselves. We need to put the standard of what kind of research that we are producing. And it's not us as young people, it's the institution of higher learning that needs to develop this policy, so that when we write, I don't have to, nobody should ask me to cite myself, because I will be like, this is the research, or this is our policy as South Sudan, as a country. If you're producing a research, this, it looks like this, so that sort of thing.
Very good. In 2 minutes, how does research contribute to development? Especially now we have limited of young people in the research industry. We need many young people to join the research industry, linking it to development at large.
Okay, so how research contribute to development is policy. If we have a policies that are scientific, with a data scientific driven. So a policy that, like for example, and I will use the example over and over again, the paper that you produce, if someone somewhere in Ministry of Finance read through it, I'm sure you have clearly put a recommendation, a mitigation, you clearly said, like, this is the cost, this is how we will be able to avoid it. If we do 1, 2, 3, it will help us to get good results. So that is one way. That's the more we produce, papers that speak to policy, the more we have policies that resonate, to the betterment of the society. Yes.
Very interesting. Now, as we come to the conclusion of the program, I told you that the fourth segment is a surprise in the stadium.
Yes.
And it has three parts, this segment. So the first part of it is that we ask our guest to introduce himself or herself with one word. For example, I, Atem, I introduce myself by the word abundance. I view life from the lens of abundance. And I see life has placed before me a lot of opportunities. That's why you guys call me Atem the Great.
Yes.
See? So this is how I manifest abundance in all aspects of my life. Now, if we are to ask Catherine Charles, what is that one word that defines you?
Curiosity.
Curiosity. And why curiosity?
Because I'm always curious to know, to learn, to understand, to unlearn. I'm always curious to know, to unpack, to search for knowledge. You know, so for me, it's the curiosity that will define me because I'm a very curious person.
Curiosity and abundance. This is a very nice mix. So the second aspect of it is that I have a gift here.
Oh, that's
And
nice
it is
of you.
yours based on answering a question. And if
Okay.
you fail to answer the question, the gift is not yours. So I'll put it here in the table. And the question is related also to research.
Okay.
We like to say that youth represent the biggest segment of South Sudan population. What is exactly is the rate of youth population? I'll give you three options. Is it 35% from the population? Is it 39 or 73.6?
The last one, 73.6.
Very excellent. The gift is yours.
Thank you.
Well, so now you managed to answer it very properly. You saw me holding a book. This book is called Commitment Book. And we have some guests whom we have hosted before you. They signed this commitment book. So as you are signing this commitment book, you are telling the viewers of SSBC and you are telling yourself that you remain committed to developing South Sudan through research and through other areas of interest. We want you today, on the 4th of Feb, to write your commitment to the viewers of SSBC. At least to know that today Catherine has come and passed by SSBC and she is committed into development. And I know that researchers like to write a lot.
Yeah, I commit.
I hope you will not fill the page with information.
No, no, no.
Exactly. So write any information that you feel like you want to write. Document down all the knowledge. Document down all the aspirations of your heart. Document down even what you would love SSBC to do as far as the youth are concerned in this program. The commitment of a writer, the commitment of a researcher. Exactly. Very interesting. So now I feel like I want to join the research industry now.
Yes, you are more than welcome. And on that note, we'll do a peer-to-peer mentorship.
Exactly. I will be your mentor.
That's cool. Because already you are doing amazing thing like Let's Read initiative. So it can also have a couple like let's not just read, but let's also write.
Exactly.
So let's read and write. How about that? It can be a good
Very interesting.
hashtag, yeah?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have some of few documentation. I think I'll share them with you. And then we see how we can go about it. And remember also to write the date of today.
Yes, I bet.
Yeah. Very interesting.
That foster peace.
Yes, this is your area, peace and security.
Security, women.
Peace and security also, it's an area of interest.
And development.
Very
Shall
interesting.
I sign? You see,
Of course, yes.
Today is
The 4th.
February.
You have already filled the page.
2025. You see, I put here 2024. So I say I commit to develop South Sudan through research and influence policy that foster peace, security, women, and development.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being our guest today. And to all viewers of SSBC, we have come to the conclusion of the 5th episode of the 2nd season of the Youthful Youth. One thing very interesting that stood out to me out of this conversation, that she is voicing her concern through writing. Do you like to be part of the research industry? Reach out to Catherine. And with this, we have come to the conclusion of the 5th episode of the Youthful Youth. See you in the next episode and stay tuned. Remember also to follow us on Facebook on SSBC TV, as well on YouTube, SSBC Official. Thank you so much and enjoy your day.